when I think of AI tools, I think of data. And if you do something with that, you got information. You do something with information, you have knowledge. You do something with knowledge, you have wisdom. So I think the biggest thing is whatever we're doing, think about that chain, right? How do you go from data, information to knowledge to wisdom?
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Studies. In this episode, we have on John Shelnutt. He's the CEO of Fortress Solutions. He's got a background rich in telecommunications and IT. Previously held senior executive positions at Cisco and Alcatel, as well as being a senior executive at Blue Danube Systems, a startup focused on 5G and IoT technologies. His extensive experience in the industry makes him a valuable asset to Fortress Solutions, especially in the realm of critical infrastructure management and support services. And that's why we're excited to have him on the program today. John, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Devin. Great to be here today.
I'm really excited to kind of dive into some of your experience. You've been around the block, I guess, as it were, in terms of just knowing this industry. So before we get started into it, I'd love to get a Coles Notes version of who you are, where you came from, and how you landed here at Fortress.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting in my career, I guess, is that I've always been looking for, I'll take it kind of what you guys are looking at. What's next? What's coming around the curve? And then with the idea of trying to capture that transition curve, meaning that there's trends that you're following, right? The macro trends. Early in my career, I always been one towards that. And even it's funny in high school, I even read the book called Megatrends, which was by John Naismith way back in many, many years ago. But that was about capturing those trends or what trends were worldwide and then following them. In my career, I've been credited with being kind of like the godfather of ADSL at Alcatel, which became multi-billion-dollar business that led into a lot of different things. But it changed the culture and the personality of Alcatel in North America at that time, because we were known more as a transport type company in the industry, working with what we used to know as long distance carriers like an AT&T or MCI or Sprint. It really gave us more of the access technology, allowing us to work with the telephone companies themselves, which back then were like the Bell South, the Ameritex, Pac Bells, which are now part of AT&T. But it was all about capturing that convergence, and it was about speeds and feeds, the best way to think about it, with DSL. After doing that, I ended up running mobility in North America for Alcatel. So I essentially wanted to capture that transition curve of where things were going from wireline to wireless. And that led to mobility. And then that really, at that point, just kind of took off from my career. And I ended up going to Cisco. I had the pleasure of doing special projects for the COO of Alcatel and then also for John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco. And both things that they asked were directly related to transitions in the industry, again, capturing those trends and what should be our competitive position and where should we make investments to go after those transitions. And that led to a long career in the telecom industry, and one of always being somewhat in the forefront of where things are heading. At Fortress Solutions, we do a lot of stuff with legacy equipment, which is interesting because I've, over my experience, have the chance to touch it, understand the go-to-market, the technology, how it's evolved. But now it's more about supporting that. And then the other piece that we're really investing in is services and software. And for us, that's where a lot of the AI piece starts coming into play. And that's where we're trying to look at where these things are going to put our time, resources, experience, and dollar in terms of capital investments into towards those trends.
To get the nickname The Godfather has to you have to do some pretty impressive stuff to get there, I imagine.
Yeah. It's at that point in time, it's kind of funny. I got with IEEE, they give a distinguished lifetime somewhat of award, and it has to be something that from a technology standpoint has created a societal benefit and has been sustainable for over 25 years. So when ADSL came out, it was It was back in 1995, and so obviously we've hit the 25-year mark. So we're actually got back together. The old gang got back together, and we're making our submission to IEEE. And for the thing that you get a plaque. We're going to put it on a wall in a building in Antwerp and then in Belgium, and we get to have a party. So it's all about the party.
Yeah. As things have shifted, I feel lucky enough to have been around when phones were still attached to the wall, and
Mm-hmm.
and I've witnessed some notable events, in the transition and shift of the industry from being connected to being even more connected. I am curious, are there any notable events in your experience? Because you have a completely different perspective on the whole thing, right? You get the behind the scenes. Are there any notable events that happened that really stand out to you in that experience?
Mm, I think for the most part, the best things in my career that have been notable is the spending time with people, and talking to them, understand their culture, understanding the nuances of who they are, what they do, what they eat, how they think, what their aspirations are personally as well as professionally. And, just the commonality of experiencing that with, people from all around the world is the most notable thing that I've had in my career. So it's just a joy, pure joy of having those experiences around the world.
Yeah, just being a part of something so big is,
Yeah.
I'm sure, a
Yeah.
very moving experience as it is. So, tell me a little bit about the day to day. What is the kind of work that you're doing right now, and what type of responsibilities fall to John?
Yeah. For Fortress Solutions, we're a 40-year-old company. The genesis of the company was actually in the repair business. And about 12 years ago, an investor came in, AG Hill Gallatin Investments, which is part of it's a single family wealth office, which is the Hunt family. They came in with the idea that, hey, let's aggregate a fragmented industry and pull it together. And that was the repair side. As a board member, they asked me to come in and start running the company. December of 2022, we really restructured the company, and we're using our repair know-how, which is deep technology, not only repair side, but also on the innovative side of taking our engineers to redesign things to continue to make them robust and useful within the network. And then a piece of that, once you have that technology know-how, you really can get into the support services. So we do advanced technical support to help keep networks running. So large telcos, telephone operators, they give us pieces of their network and say, go manage this for us. So it's kind of the trifecta for us, which is the repair side, advanced technical support, is troubleshooting the network from CTAC, tier 2, tier 3. But also we do things like migration services, design services, things of that nature. And then we also have a logistical business where we do logistics support around the world with forward stocking locations. So we take that trifecta of repair, advanced technical services, which is really human capital, intellectual knowledge of what the network is and how it works. And then with logistics, importer and exporter of record around the world, we can keep things up and running and keep that robustness going. So that is our core competency. Because of this know-how, we think we can take this knowledge that we have and go through and start really working on as private networks become more advantageous to help design it, build it, operate it, and then turn it over. So transfer type models, or maintain that for new operators whose core competency is not telecom, is not networking. Let us do it because we feel like we have that knowledge, experts at that piece of it. And then as we move up the value chain, part of our strategy is moving into the industrial 4.0. So we want to move up the layer. And back in the day, we talked about the 7-layer stack, but ultimately, if you know networks, you can start designing smaller networks for those whose core competency is not networks. And then we want to start layering on applications to that. So we want to get into smart cities, manufacturing, oil and gas, things of that nature is the application layer. And in February, we did make a public announcement that we launched a smart city as a partner for a real estate firm. We've also done other things like that. So we were moving up into that services and software stack and just creating higher value for our end customers. The biggest thing that we're focused on is the outcomes that we can solve for our customer base, whether they're telcos, new operators, or those mostly like enterprise that are looking to build application layers that kind of we know it as IoT, but things of that nature.
So in these types of situations where there's like, and I'm only making an assumption here, it seems like there's a limited number of players for you to serve. How difficult is it to acquire new customers? And I'm just thinking out loud here, where it looks like, well, you pursue this vertical until you're completely involved in it, and there's nothing left there, and then we move to a new vertical, and now you're creating your own oceans, it seems.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's still a tremendous upside in the telecom space in general. When I say telecoms, it's like the AT&T, the Verizon, the T-Mobiles, the Bell Canadas, the Telus, are really the big five in Canada and US. There's British Telecom, Telefonica, Vodafone. There's Reliance Jio, Rakuten, NTT Docomo, China Mobile. If you take the aggregate spend of all those people on a capital basis, is about 300 billion on a global basis annually. If you take the operating expense, it's probably another, multiple of 4, so 1.2 trillion, roughly. So all of a sudden you're looking at 5 trillion capital OpEx spend on an annual basis of the place that we can play in. And that is, so in terms of, we're a small company, right? We're privately held. We're 200 people strong. There's a tremendous upside just in that space. But the second vertical where we're focused on is building out new private networks. And there's a tremendous amount of spend and intensity going through that. So private 5G, private LTE is coupled with connectivity on the enterprise side, like Wi-Fi or SD-WAN, things of that nature. And then the third bucket for us, third vertical that we want, is the application layer, Industrial 4.0. So all of a sudden, things that play into that. So we feel there's 3 market segments we belong in, that we can create value in, that we can solve outcomes for our customers. And there's a tremendous amount for us. There's each one of them in the aggregate, they provide a tremendous amount of upside for our future.
Okay, so then when it comes to attracting those types of people in, this sounds like it's very much a relationship kind of industry. You're, meeting and shaking hands with the right people. Obviously, like a TV commercial is not going to be the best way to do this. So, like, how do you approach your, I guess the marketing engine in Fortress?
Yeah, there's 2 aspects of it. One is the reputation that Fortress has. Again, that 40-year history. We lead with our blue chip customers. The Verizons, the AT&Ts, the Bell Canadas of the world. We're primarily North America based for that. But we also work with Cisco, Nokia, Ericsson. So we work with the ecosystem that supports the telecom type customers. And then we use that know-how to talk to new entrants or disruptors into that industry or that ecosystem. For me, I start thinking like the Mavenairs, the Airspans, the Mosa Labs, Ericsson / Cradlepoint. Cradlepoint's a new entrance in that space, but rapidly growing within a company that has long history within the industry itself. But then there's also a lot of startup companies. And one thing that they don't have is they don't have a great channel to go to market. And out Cisco, I was there when big Cisco bought Meraki. Meraki was a mesh Wi-Fi company that essentially did connectivity through a cloud-enabled service. And a lot of it is after year one, we took it from small company to big company because we took it into that Cisco channel, that Cisco sales machine. We feel like we are a great avenue for smaller companies that, long as they've been vetted, they fit into the culture, chemistry, how we serve our customers, and they focus on the customer outcomes, where they can do that. They can come to us and we can be that channel for them. Because again, that 40-year history and the fact that we have the reputation that's extremely strong within that. A lot of those companies like that, we feel that the Fortress brand reputation carries it. But then there's individuals within the company that have been in the industry a long time that helps create some of that prestige that we bring to it. Through my own experiences working around the world, but we have a number of people within the company with similar type of experience that can help amplify the opportunities that we can bring to help companies go to market and create a dual strategy of serving our customers together.
Yeah, that brand and reputation, by far one of the most expensive ways of acquiring customers, but also the most powerful because it acts as a trust signal in a zero trust society where especially with the evolution of the internet, we're having a difficult time vetting the people that we want to work with. And so having the relationship element and that reputation to support the relationships, I think is really powerful. So that's that's really
it's an internal joke, and I don't mind sharing, but it's at Mobile World Congress, which is a big annual show in Barcelona every year now. This past year was my 20th time attending. So it speaks to my age more than anything. But we had, like, over a 4-day period, we had over 100 meetings, and we met over 300 people in 4 days.
Wow.
And we didn't measure the success by the meetings and the outcomes of the meetings. We measured it was more of an internal bet. We measured who would get the most hugs. So believe it or not, we were like, okay, we'd walk in there. Okay, I got a hug. I'm one up on you, right? So I think that just speaks to the personal connectivity. And if you have that, and you have that with people that you've known for a long time, there's some value you're creating professionally, but also personally. And that's really what we try to be as a company. So.
I wonder how much better the world would be, and not that I'm a utopian by any measure, but if we measured our success by a similar metric and how many hugs we get after the work that we do, I think that's that's really powerful. So in terms of managing all of these clients, I'm assuming just based on the relationship nature of the work that you're doing, it must be difficult keeping track of everybody and where everything is at and the logistics of all of it. Is that something that you guys are facing as a challenge, or is that something that you guys have kind of conquered?
In terms of like keeping track of people, there's a lot of tools available to do that. One is just simply pick up the phone and send a text. And nowadays, okay, where you at? Where are you doing? Give me a shout when you can, type thing. There's also, things like LinkedIn and a lot of social media stuff. On the logistical side of, people, places, and things, we use one of the things we use is Power BI, database management tool. It works very well for us. Like on the repair side, we repair about 100,000 pieces of equipment a year, which represents over 40,000 SKUs. So it's quite a bit. And then our database is in the millions of lines of code. So we have a lot of resources that we've collected over the time, and we use AI tools even to help us cipher through that, to bring some knowledge to that.
So let's dig into that a little bit in terms of this new technology that's coming out, especially AI. What are you finding? First, we'll go with most useful.
Yeah. most useful is how it can generate operating workflows, efficiencies is the most useful for us. So it's like taking time and motion studies so that the inbound that you get, you look through it using tools, and that creates some efficiency on the outbound. Whether it's turnaround time or reduction in cost or ability to offer something at a more competitive price because you've lowered your costs. All those things like that is operating efficiencies is the biggest benefit to us.
Okay, and then in terms of um, drawbacks or challenges that are created by some of this technology, have you experienced anything in the way of that kind of thing?
Yeah, the only is when you implementing tools sometimes require a cultural change, doing something different than how you used to do it.
Yeah.
So that barrier you just have to work through. And I think a lot of that is, it's the prep work about why are we doing this? Why your important role within that, so they understand the outcome that you're looking for, and that they feel like they're not only a participant but can be a leader within it as well. And I think if we do things right on the front side, in the middle, which is the implementation, then the output, which is the end goal, is a lot stronger. So,
right. So, I think that pretty much covers all of the things that we were looking to explore with you. There's a lot of things in the ether in terms of the creativity of these tools and things that are coming down the pipeline. Is there anything that kind of excites you about the future of this technology and maybe even where you guys see some practical application for it?
The practical application for us is that, I mentioned we have a database, it's millions of lines of code. And if I can, I get a lot of things that come into me. We get, on a daily basis, we get hit with a lot of different things. So again, increasing my operating efficiency so that it really helps me generate better customer satisfaction scores, CSAT scores, is my end goal. So it helps me just, provide a better quality service level attainment for my end customers. And that's the beauty of it.
Awesome. I guess to kind of wrap things up here for everybody, I always like to ask my guests a kind of a weird question. If there was other people who kind of in your position that are facing some of these challenges in terms of implementing technology or working with clients, what would that one piece of advice be?
Yeah, I'm going to answer it in maybe a little unique way. Hopefully, and that's a value. I talked about this before on a webinar, and my mother was a librarian and later became a media specialist. But by happen chance, I happened to be in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was a librarian conference at the hotel I was staying at. And they had this big banner, and it said, "Data, information, knowledge, wisdom." And I had to go ask, okay, what does that mean? And it's simply like when I think of AI tools, I think of data. And if you do something with that, you got information. You do something with information, you have knowledge. If you do something with knowledge, you have wisdom. So I think the biggest thing is whatever we're doing, think about that chain, right? How do you go from data, information to knowledge to wisdom? And that knowledge, wisdom, it almost creates that codependency with your customers because you're solving a mutual outcome that's for them, that's going to be helpful for you. And if you can do that and go up to that value chain, I think that's the best. That's the beauty of where is working with customers and thinking more about how you solve the outcomes that they're looking for. So.
Very sound advice, John. You've been very generous with your time and knowledge, and for that, on behalf of everybody, I'm very grateful. In closing, if there was, or if somebody was out there and wanted to kind of get in touch with you to pick your brain or maybe work with you in some way, how would one go about doing that?
Go to LinkedIn and my contact information is there, or just reach out to Fortress Solutions, and I'll be glad to. I try to be responsive as I can. So
beautiful. If you wanted to get in touch with any of us on our team, it's nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode, and I'll see you in the next.